bevo.com.
Tom, yeah, because one of your friends actually on tompeters.com, Seth Godin, he talks about the fact that organizations and individuals need to be remarkable, i.e. that you're able to remark about them, so you stand out from the crowd. But in this noisy world of digital and social media, how is an organization or an individual supposed to stand out from the crowd?
As you know, my message for a long time has been, and my real answer to your CEO deal is, you know, whether it's sport, whether it's music, or whether it's a company, best roster of talent wins. But one of my great and happy days professionally is we do this list, and pretty much everybody does it. You all do it, of 100 best companies to work for in the country or in a region or what have you. And the number one company a couple of years ago, which you haven't heard of, but neither have many Americans, is a regional grocer called Wegmans out of Rochester. And what I loved about these guys is, you know, when you're talking about the people stuff, I will get somebody who comes up to me, whether it's Malaysia, whether it's the UK, or whether it's Chicago, and they will say, fine, you talk about all these people practices, you lived in Silicon Valley for 30 years, you can do this at Oracle, you can do it at Google, but I'm in retail. Well, you know, stuff it. There's Wegmans, and so you can do it in a regional retailer. And relative to these nasty times we're in right now, actually the first retailer, I think, to be the number one company to work for in America was a couple of years before Wegmans, and it's a little kind of a sort of American version of IKEA called the Container Store. And the reason for bringing them up is while everybody else amongst their competitors in pretty much the world, in the face of this retail horror of the last year or so, was cutting stuff across the board, the Container Store doubled their training expenditure for in-store personnel. Because their comment was, the CEO's logic was, he said, look, it's a horrible time, but that still means 8 out of every 10 customers who used to come in still come in, and we want them happier than ever, and we want a larger share of their business. And so happy, competent staff on the front line, the front selling line at retail is frankly more important than it ever was. You know, we'll cut the perks and we'll even cut the company Christmas party, but we're going to redouble our effort where where you really hit the coalface.
And because you talk about, in your book, you talk about brand and experiences, and that's exactly what you're talking about now, isn't it? Sort of, you know, the customer experience.
Yeah.
When they have a face-to-face with your brand, you can't cut that.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And that experience tends, I mean, my argument, and of course the experienced marketing guys, Gilmore and Pine, who wrote the first book on it, the experience is the brand. You can't get away with murder with $1 jillion advertising campaign when the smell tends to start seeping out of the, out of the individual transaction. But, incidentally, going back to your earlier question of standouts, and we just did a piece on this book at our blog. I think the guy's name was George Whalen, and he did a book on the 25 great retailers, independent retailers. And they're these amazing places. They're, the first one was in something called, I think, Fairfield, Ohio. And I don't even think they've heard of it in Cleveland and Toledo, relative, let alone Manchester, England. But this is a Christmas ornaments store, and they have something like 6,000 varieties of trimmings that have come from all over the world. And people drive 500 miles, or probably like they did with that Mall of America in Minneapolis years ago, fly in from Tokyo to this place. But so that kind of standoutishness, is entirely possible.
bevo.com